when Double J began, everybody had ideas. Everybody was full of ideas about what it should be and what it should do. And I guess what it did was synthesise a lot of the very general ideas, i.e. we believed in innovative programming, we believed in playing music that wasn't being played at the time on the radio. We believed in, playing things that were of interest to young people that weren't being, we felt, covered by the other media.
2JJJ particularly supports and takes an active role in exposing new music that particularly commercial stations don't.
Good evening and welcome to the last in the current series of JJJ's Live at the Wireless. For the last 6 weeks we've been bringing you all different kinds of live acts. We've had folk music, bush music and even last week some thrash metal. In our endeavours to bring you a piece of everything. Tonight, pop music of the 80s, brought to you live by the Falling Joys.
When you say it's okay, what am I supposed to think? I don't know where you're running, well, it's okay, that's okay. When you say it's okay, what am I supposed to think? I don't know where you're running, well, it's okay.
When we go national, we'll be able to do this right round the country and have bands from all the capital cities playing to an audience right round the country, and so give exposure to the new music that's happening from the bands that don't have the big record company support and the big push.
The interesting thing is that the number of stations actually targeting at a young audience is diminishing. There's often a lot of talk that young people are well serviced, but in fact Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, not Adelaide but Brisbane, have all seen the closure in programming terms of stations deliberately aiming at an audience that's under 20.
If we can't survive the initial impact of Triple J, we will go down.
You're with Triple M FM and the show is Radio Liberation. The time is 40 minutes to 6 o'clock and our record coming up now is Johnny Clegg and Savuka with Scatterlings of Africa.
In Adelaide, Triple M will no longer, if it doesn't exist, it will not be able to service the local bands, the local small-scale acts that have to start somewhere before they become commercial. If Triple J services those things from Sydney, I'll be surprised.
Probably most of the major Australian bands you'd like to name in Australia today got played on Triple J months or years before commercial radio decided to play them. For example, the Go-Betweens have been played a lot on commercial radio in the last 6 months. Triple J has been playing fantastic music by the Go-Betweens for about 5 years before, or maybe 7 years before commercial radio decided that they'd play the Go-Betweens. That's just an example. It applies across the board to most of the Australian bands you can name and heaps of the overseas ones. JJJ is playing the fantastic music of the future months or years before commercial radio is going to pick it up. So people are going to get to hear this, not just in Sydney, but right round the country.
We have a small indication here of our wares, 4,000 people, plus a few more that haven't been bound yet, for submission to the Parliament.
So in total we've got 5,000 signatures of people in Newcastle who say that they want to receive Triple J. And I think that's a fairly clear indication that we want it there.
We're a bit like the mouse that roared. We're a small, insignificant public broadcaster tucked away here in Adelaide, and we're managing to get a few letters off to a few key people. We want to draw attention to public broadcasting. The state governments have noticed what we're doing and think it's a tremendous job. The federal government seems to be blind to what public broadcasting has been doing.
They have lots of different little things happen on community radio stations, and so people tune into them for specific programs rather than listening all the time. And that's where we can, basically because we've got the resources, do that a lot better than they can.
I would like to think, and this is what I'm most optimistic about it, is that we'll have 3 states receiving the program by the end of the year.
We've got kids coming in the doors here now. We are providing a youth service. We want some help and recognition from the government to enable us to go about that at a very cost-effective kind of level.
Some of the community radio stations are concerned, particularly 5MMM in Adelaide, are concerned that they might be losing their audience base when we arrive, and we're very aware of that concern, and certainly don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the public radio stations. And while I think there certainly is reason for some concern, we hope that we will be able to go national without hurting the public radio stations, because we see ourselves as filling a role that's between the public and the commercial sector of radio.
It's pretty simple, really. Triple J will satisfy a lot of things. It will satisfy a need for diversity of music in Newcastle. It'll satisfy a need for topical awareness or topical discussion of youth issues in Newcastle.
My simple analysis is that there is public, there is private, and there is national. And what we will be doing will be quite distinct from the other 2. And the 3 of them all fit into a sort of mosaic that is intended to provide all sorts of listeners with different things.